Rural America again serves as the first battleground of the presidential campaign sequence. Iowa is where the tall corn and animals dominate the national perception of this state. So too does the presence of candidates seeking the nation's highest office every 4 years. If an appearance at the Iowa State Fair counts as dealing with farm issues, then the candidates still in the race pass this exercise by flipping pork chops and getting selfies with the famous butter cow. Nearly 1/3 of the Hawkeye State's economy is agriculturally based. But issues of that subject have not garnered equal time on the stump this cycle.
The rule of law is a sacred value in our country that we need to enforce our border.
In March of 2015, Iowa agricultural and energy businessman Bruce Rastetter hosted the Iowa Ag Summit. 24 were invited from both parties, but only 9 Republican candidates attended and took questions on issues impacting farmers from Rastetter. However, one candidate didn't take the populist company line when it came to renewable fuels.
How about we deal with the elephant in the room right away? A week ago, you talked to Club for Growth, and you talked about that you're opposed to ethanol subsidies. And those subsidies, as you're aware, were eliminated in 2011. Talk about that.
Well, look, my view on ethanol and biofuels, I support biofuels and ethanol. I think biofuels have a major role in the energy market and that they're going to continue to have a growing role. I also don't think, and you and I have talked about this a number of times before, I don't think Washington should be picking winners and losers. When it comes to energy, I think we should have an all-of-the-above approach, but it should be driven by the market.
Senator Ted Cruz was not invited to last week's Iowa Renewable Fuel Summit because of this stance. The Iowa Renewable Fuels Association Board of Directors asked Republican and Democratic candidates to appear that they deem to have favorable views on biofuels. Past Iowa Caucus winners Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum, along with Carly Fiorina and Donald Trump, all accepted the invitation. The New York businessman had a rare scripted moment in his campaign during his time on stage.
The RFS, which is Renewable Fuel Standard, is an important tool in the mission to achieve energy independence for the United States. I will do all that is in my power as president to achieve that goal.
Huckabee, the former Arkansas governor, took the opportunity to highlight policy differences with Mr. Cruz.
Have some people running for president who think that maybe we ought to get rid of the RFS. Maybe instead we ought to get rid of the candidates who don't have a clue about the value of agriculture in America and make sure that we don't waste billions of dollars of infrastructure.
Santorum, the former Pennsylvania senator, was making his 3rd appearance at the summit, took his time to encourage renewable fuel advocates to support a candidate that has their best interest in mind.
If Iowa is not going to stand and support the RFS, why do you think the rest of the country is going to? You will kill RFS, and Iowa will have her fingerprints on the weapon.
Businesswoman Fiorina also spoke in favor of the RFS and also free trade, but made some of her strongest comments against the Environmental Protection Agency, recounting a story of a farm tour she took last summer.
That patchway of grass in the middle of that farmer's soybean field, he has a lot more reason to manage that water well, to protect his land, to protect his investment, to protect his family, to protect his community.
Iowa has served more as a backdrop for the campaigns than a backbone of their candidacies.
You know, I think it is a little different. I don't want to overdo it, but I think you have seen a reluctance from some candidates to talk a whole lot about agriculture. There's issues out there like the Farm Bill, like trade issues, and like the renewable fuel standard that they sometimes would rather, some of them would rather avoid talking about.
And Shaw, the head of the Iowa Renewable Fuels Association and a former candidate for Congress in Iowa, knows the campaign is an education process.
the East Coast or West Coast media likes to just say, oh, they come down and they bow down to ethanol in Iowa. It's all political. And look, I'm not naive. I understand that politics plays a role here, but I think the role that politics plays with the Iowa caucus is it opens their ears. It forces them to find a position that is defensible.
Even Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack, a former presidential candidate himself, advised summit attendees to look beyond the first talking point on agriculture.
Shoot, don't ask them just about the RFS. Ask them about, well, what do you think about the Navy's purchase of biofuel? Do you think that's a good idea? What about this idea of exports? Do you think that's a good idea? You think trade, is that a good idea? What about research? Is that a good idea? I'd be really, really interested in the answers to those.
After the caucus results are harvested Monday night, the candidates will market their results. Iowans will be left with empty town halls and likely few answers on where candidates stand on agricultural issues outside of biofuels. For Market to Market, I'm Paul Yeager.